On Monday, Trump signed an executive order to ban flag burning, despite the Supreme Court ruling in 1989 that it is constitutional. The order directs the Justice Department to investigate and prosecute people for burning the American flag, and if convicted, they'll get 1 year in jail. Critics say that Trump does not have the power to rewrite the First Amendment, so what's really happening is that Trump is trying to get the issue back to the Supreme Court, and hopefully this more conservative Supreme Court will rule in his favor. The next day, a Social Security Chief Data Officer, Charles Borges, said that more than 300 million Americans' data was put at risk after DOGE officials uploaded sensitive information to a cloud account, leaving these Americans vulnerable to identity theft and other crimes. Typically, this information is protected by robust safeguards. However, it appears DOGE employees were careless with this information. Borges' complaint says that the uploaded information was an abuse of authority and potentially violates the law. Then on Wednesday, Trump takes management of Union Station away from Amtrak and gives it to the federal government. The Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, says the station has fallen into disrepair when it should be a point of pride, so the Trump administration will work to beautify the landmark in line with Trump's vision. Critics say that this is just the latest act by Trump to put DC further under his control. The next day, Heather Honey, who distorted voter data, is appointed to an election integrity role with Homeland Security. This appointment comes as Trump has been using election integrity concerns as a pretext to give his administration power over how elections are run in the US. Honey's attempt to find election fraud in both Pennsylvania and Arizona after the 2020 election has become known to use a flawed methodology that is riddled with errors and is biased. David Becker, the executive director of the nonprofit Center for Election Innovation and Research, said the DHS used to have real credibility in an advisory role on elections. Now it's being poised to be used as a megaphone to spread disinformation rather than combat it. Then on Friday, a federal appeals court in a 7-4 ruling said that Trump has no legal right to impose sweeping tariffs on almost every country by using emergency powers. However, the court did not strike down the tariffs immediately, allowing Trump until mid-October to appeal to the Supreme Court, and Trump said that's exactly what he'll do. In a social media post, he said, "If allowed to stand, this decision would literally destroy America." Jake Colvin, president of the National Foreign Trade Council, said, "If these tariffs are ultimately struck down, it ought to be a wake-up call for Congress to reclaim its constitutional mandate to regulate duties and bring some long-term certainty for U.S. businesses and relief for consumers." The next day, a federal judge temporarily blocks Trump from carrying out speedy deportations of undocumented migrants inside the U.S. The judge said Trump's speedy deportations are trampling on individuals' due process rights, and by denying due process to some, puts everyone at risk. Finally, on Sunday, a federal judge halts the deportation of hundreds of unoccupied children to Guatemala moments before the planes took off. Stephen Miller insisted that the Guatemalan government has requested all 600 kids, and each kid self-reported that their parents are in Guatemala. While law professor Carl Tobias said, these are assertions without evidence, and that some of these children are at risk for harm if they are deported or they oppose deportation altogether, and first they need to have their day in court. The next hearing for this case is scheduled for September 10th.